Welcome. Please take your seats and silence your cell phones. Our program is about to begin.
Around the world, there are more than 1.6 billion people who live in substandard, structurally unsound housing. In addition to this being morally unacceptable, poor housing conditions are also linked to poorer health. So to increase health and weather resilience in housing, Earth Enable is announcing a CGI commitment to action to expand access to innovative and sustainable flooring for housing in Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya. Together with the Water Trust and Step 30 Kenya, Earth Enable will bring these materials to 3.8 million people in their homes over the next 10 years. Thanks to this commitment, more people, more families, especially those who live in low-income neighborhoods and in rural areas, will have access to safe, durable, affordable, and ultimately healthier housing.
Please welcome to the stage Zainab Salbi.
Good morning, everyone. It is good morning, right? Yes. How are you? I have the pleasure of moderating today's discussions on nature-based solution. So allow me to introduce myself. I'm the co-founder of Daughters for Earth, a fund and a movement that finds, funds, and celebrate women-led climate actions, particularly ones focused on nature-based solutions, and mobilizes every woman with the tools and resources to create changes in their lives. Now, what is nature-based solution? Because there's a lot of talk about, what can we do to deal with the most important challenge facing our humanity, and that is climate change and the loss of biodiversity. There's a lot of discussion in the media about technology-led solutions, renewable energies, and all of that entails, which are very important and very a critical pathway to solving the issues. But there are other pathways, equally important, equally effective, and that we actually need to approach all of them with the respect that they all need. And that is one of them is nature-based solution. What is that? How do we go about it? How do business engage in it? How does civil society engage with it? Is the discussion of our panels today. But before we go there, I want to introduce us to few commitment makers who have done commitments in the past, and they are here today to report on their commitments. And I'm starting with Dr. Sarah Otterstrom, Executive Director of Paso Pacifico, to report to us about her commitment in the last year. Welcome.
This is a new commitment, but I'd like you to all meet Ricardo. Each day before leaving home, Ricardo reaches for a technological wonder, a tool used by indigenous peoples of Mesoamerica for generations. It is a symbol of ingenuity and freedom. Richard is equipped with his machete, or a large steel knife. When used for good, the machete represents the power to rebuild forests. Those who master it know how each plant or tree species grow from shoots and how to reduce weedy plants that compete with growing crops and trees. Small-scale and indigenous farmers are the reforestation experts we need. They possess great wisdom for feeding families and shaping their environment. They hold the key to climate resilience. Yet, there's a risk their wisdom will fade as younger generations migrate to cities. Meet Sylvia. Sylvia is 23 years old and left her rural town to pursue opportunities in the city. She is a master of digital technology, which she uses to maintain social ties with her hometown. Sylvia is part of the next generation who cares deeply about the planet and who wants to take action. Enter the Machete Project, a digital platform for sharing the wisdom of our elders with the next generation. Through the Machete Project, Sylvia learns, listens, and documents reforestation techniques shared by Ricardo. She is empowered as a citizen scientist and visual storyteller to collect data and record climate and biodiversity impacts made by Ricardo. Thanks to the Clinton Foundation, Paso Pacifico, together with our commitment partners, SoftServe Inc., Ashoka Aspire, and Societal Thinking, is announcing our commitment to action to engage 300,000 youth through the Machete digital platform, Machete Project digital platform. Through this commitment, 1.5 million farmers will remove 30 million tons of greenhouse and atmospheric carbon through micro-reforestation. Together, we can use the power of the machete to restore dignity, ensure cross-generational bonds, and build a sense of purpose for a more sustainable and resilient future.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Otterson. Now I would like to ask Elizabeth Valenzuela from Fondo Acción to give us a progress report on her previous commitment.
Thank you so much. I'm Elizabeth Valenzuela, Technical Director of Fondo Acción. We are a Colombian private fund that designs and invests in sustainable projects to protect biodiversity, tackle climate change, and promote the development of children. We believe in the catalytic power of women and children to increase climate resilience in their communities by designing a long-term financial mechanism and establishing partnerships to support local ideas with financial and technical resources. Women and children are the most vulnerable because of their societal roles and specific needs. At the same time, women are the caretakers of their communities, and children possess transformative ideas and behaviors that can reclaim what has been destroyed. Our commitment to action, launching the Climate Action Fund for Children and Women in Colombia, is about creating a more resilient, equitable, and sustainable world for them. We allied with 2 corporate Colombian companies to take action together, and we selected 8 projects that will be held with indigenous communities in the most at-risk regions of the country for climate change events. With these projects, we will restore watershed and coastal ecosystems to ensure clean water, establish self-sustaining agriculture to ensure food security, and create risk management committees in communities and schools to increase capacities to respond to natural disasters and climate events. Women and children are not only vulnerable populations, but also frontline leaders in the fight against climate change that must be empowered to act. Thank you.
Bravo. Thank you so much. And now we go to Puerto Rico. We have with us Fernando Llaveras from Para la Naturaleza, a sister organization of the Puerto Rico Conservation Trust. So, Fernando, how are you doing?
Good, and thank you, Zainab, for this introduction, and thank you for the Clinton Global Initiative.
Fantastic. Fernando, tell us, please introduce yourself and share a little bit about what are you looking at, or what is behind you, rather.
This is one of our nature reserve. Para Naturaleza is an NGO that has protected close to 40,000 acres now throughout the islands of Puerto Rico. And this is one of them. This is Hacienda La Esperanza in Manatí, Puerto Rico. And so we have here about 2,300 acre of valley, coastal valleys and karst region here. So this is one of our biggest tree nurseries right now, and that's why we're here.
Fantastic. Can you tell us about your 2018 commitment, and what was it, and how was it progressing in the long term?
Sure. Just to give you a very quick background, Puerto Rico in the 1920s deforested about 94% of the island due to mainly traditional agricultural practices. So there was a huge biodiversity loss during the more than a century. And this project, it's really aimed initially at bringing back the biodiversity. So we started, in 1989 with Hurricane Hugo. And so you have an idea, Hurricane Maria in 2017, the U.S. Forest Service estimate is about 144 million trees were killed by that hurricane. So the need for reforestation not only crosses the need to reintroduce species. At that time we were planting about 100 out of the 550 species that we have native and endemic. Now we have grown to 354 native and endemic species. So we are really bringing back the biological genetics of our forest, and but also the coastal erosion, the river erosion that has really benefited from all this reforestation that is going on, and as well as the carbon sequestration that this brings about. So there's a lot of benefit in this project, and that's what moved us to make this commitment with the Clinton Global Initiative of planting 750,000 trees during a 7-year period. Excellent. Right now, we are at 350,000 trees. We have engaged about 14,000 volunteers. We're working with 20 public schools and 33 community centers throughout the islands that are also joining us in the reforestation efforts. And in the next couple of weeks, actually in 2 weeks, we're going to have a massive distribution project of really giving away 25,000 trees to the population, to the general population, to become partners in this initiative.
Excellent, excellent. And I have one last quick question. How was the community impacted or engaged even in this project?
Well, you can imagine we have about 20,000 students engaged. We have these 33 communities engaged. So they really have been directly impacted, and they have become partners of this effort. So there's so much gain for their communities and for their well-being as well. And I should point out that the Clinton Global Initiative has been an incredible support through its network. So we have had a lot of donors that has really gained traction and supported us. So thank you, all of you there that really are supporting reforestation throughout the world, but this is probably the most important thing we can do right now.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your presence here. Round of applause for all our commitment makers and progress reports. And now I want to start with our first panel discussion, which will be, again, everything we're talking today is about nature-based solution. We'll start with the discussion with more business focus, and then we'll move to civil society and the public sector. And with that, I ask for your help in welcoming Laura Korp, Senior Partner at McKinsey & Company, Andres Estevez, Senior Partner and Chairman of BTG Pactual, and Dr. Deborah Lawrence, Chief Scientist at Calyx Global. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I want to start with Dr. Lawrence, if you don't mind. When we talk about carbon offsets, there are many forms to choose from the market. Can you briefly share a bit about the importance of these varied approaches to nature-based solutions?
I'd be delighted. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. Nature provides three big kinds of solutions: what we can conserve, what we can restore, and what we use. So what we can conserve in terms of an offset, so we can actually make this a marketable function. Conservation of intact forests is the most immediate thing we can do now, and there's a whole bucket of offsets called reduced emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, or RED. So that's one, that's conserving forests. And then if we think about restoring nature, we can also generate carbon offsets by restoring nature. And that includes things like afforestation and reforestation, like our guest just talked about. It also includes things like mangrove restoration, so restoring nature. The third type of offset, or a proposition that turns nature's services into a function that can both bring finance and bring increased livelihoods, is the way we do what we do to nature. So I'm thinking about regenerative farming, soil management practices, improved agricultural land management, and improved forest management. All of those things have a carbon component, and right now, corporations are taking big commitments, and they're looking for ways to support nature while supporting their climate commitments. So those are the three big buckets.
Very important. Thank you so much. Andrea, now want to go to you because your firm's investment group launched a very impressive $1 billion impact-oriented reforestation strategy in Latin America. Can you share with us the goals of the investment and the progress you've seen thus far?
Well, thank you, Zaina. Very good to be here. Well, I have a little bit different background than most of the audience here. I'm chairman of BTG, the largest investment bank in the Global South, headquarters in Brazil. But this initiative shows and demonstrates what we can do in the private sector with private capital, with competitive returns, but with tremendous impact in conservation and especially in restoration. We launched last year together with Conservation International, and it's a great partnership. A fund that basically buys degraded areas, normally low production cattle farms, completely degraded, generally in the Cerrado in Brazil, which is south of Amazon. And you have the target is to rebuild a combination of commercial forests and original forests with the engagement of local communities, and sell the wood products only for long-term retention wood products like furniture, for example. And the quality of the project brings credits with the retention of carbon and the restoration of the forest, preserving the rivers in the region, and create competitive returns, double-digit dollar returns on the long term, where you can offer to endowments, sovereign wealth funds, family offices globally an opportunity to invest their money, but create tremendous impact in terms of restoration. And the scale of this project, this is just the first fund. We are talking about almost 1 billion trees, new trees, on degraded area that can create a belt south of Amazon that are extremely relevant for what we were discussing briefly in terms of protecting tropical forests, especially the largest one in the planet. So we are very excited about the idea of using private capital, private initiative, no governments involved, but creating a solution, a natural-based solution that can be scale and very impactful. So that's the target of this project that you mentioned.
Very impressive and inspiring, actually. Thank you. Laura, I want to go to you. You know, you work with McKinsey. How can we ensure accuracy and reliability of high-quality carbon offset claims and investments?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here, and I'm thrilled to hear more conversation this New York Climate Week on nature than last year, and last year we heard more than the year before, and it's so critical because the closest thing we have to a silver bullet on climate change is nature-based solutions. So I think trust is a real issue, and we really need to focus on building high-quality solutions that the private sector can really get behind. I think the good news is we have a lot of advances in technology that helps on measurement and verification, whether that's satellite imagery, eDNA for soil health, and a lot of other tools. I think we can also help project developers learn about and understand and embrace some of the newer benchmarks like core carbon principles and guide their projects to that, which I think will help build confidence in the private sector. And another thing we can do is take jurisdictional approaches. I love hearing your example. I wasn't aware of that, 1 billion trees and a whole corridor. The more we approach jurisdictional approaches that combine a lot of projects at scale, it then facilitates being able to work on the verification and being able to work on the permanence. And so whether it's projects like Leaf Coalition or others, I think that also helps move us in the right direction.
It's very interesting. I have to say that today, actually, on BBC, they issued a report about how important it is for businesses to be involved in nature-based solutions for their own future, for the future of business, as well as for the future of Earth, of course, and our own humanity. So I actually advise everyone to go back to that report. But back to Dr. Lawrence. Calax has a pretty detailed and rigorous rating. No, sorry, I just repeated that.
You didn't.
I did not. Okay. Has pretty. I read it to myself, so I thought has a pretty detailed and rigorous rating criteria. Can you share the priorities buyers should be looking for when purchasing credits?
I'd be delighted. We do have a really rigorous framework that allows us to evaluate nature-based solutions the same way we would evaluate technology-based solutions, which we think is important for forging some of that trust, that we are holding them to the same standards that something that looks a lot easier to do is held to. The most important criteria that we look at are additionality, meaning would this have happened anyway? We are talking about financing actions to either reduce carbon out of the atmosphere or to increase carbon stored on the ground, because corporations are looking to make a claim that they have reduced their emissions, or they're looking for permission to emit as well. So we want to be sure that whatever happens on the ground, these incredible projects we talked about, that they are additional, that they wouldn't have happened without carbon finance. That's the first thing. Like, if they weren't additional, why are we giving them money? So it's kind of basic. The second criteria that's really important for us is permanence. We are looking for solutions that that are really up to the task of the next few decades to the next century. We are emitting fossil fuels. They will be there for thousands of years. We need these solutions to hold us for at least 100 years until something magical happens and we've covered it. The third criteria that's really important is getting the greenhouse gas accounting right. We cannot overcredit. We have to just be sure that if someone is offering a ton of CO2 removals or a ton of avoided CO2, that it's really a ton. So we spend a lot of time trying to figure out if it's additional, if it's permanent, and if a ton is a ton. And in terms of like what buyers need to ask for, we do that work behind. What they need to ask for from us is to say, did this producer of offsets make all the most conservative assumptions so that we're sure it's really delivering what it says it is, so conservativeness. And then also transparency. Like, are they really being clear about what they're doing? That's what I would say.
Very interesting. We're moving into a new territories, basically, of how we look at businesses and how we measure businesses and how we measure even our own relationship with Earth. Andrea, I want to go back to you. CGI here, as you know, is a firm believer in collaborations and partnerships to push issues forward. How have partnerships contributed to your success? And what breakthrough or innovation partnerships would have created the greatest opportunities to expand the role of nature-based solution?
That's a very good question, because I think we achieved what we are. And as Laura mentioned, we are discussing more and more the challenge that we are. Of course, the situation is more serious, but I think we are much more mature about that. And I've been on the board of Conservation International for 15 years. And we did a lot of advocacy and created national parks and a lot of what I consider very special achievements. But it's a moment that is required another layer of action that goes beyond that. You need to have partnership. You need to involve mainstream capital, private capital, in order to meet the challenge. And I think the big, smart organizations are trying to attract to this mission of all of us via partnerships. What was missing, right? And we did at BTG this partnership with CI exactly to have our knowledge of fundraising, managing investments with their scientific background and nature-based solution science to support us on this initiative. And when you plant forests, sometimes you're not exact where you are, but if degraded areas, you have commercial forests. At the margin of the rivers, you have original forests. When you engage the local communities, there is no doubt that you are moving in the right direction. So we created this partnership combining nature-based science of CI with our knowledge on managing business. Of course, mutual interest in doing something that is remarkable, scalable, and then can be really transformational for the scale of our problem, right? Don't need to do the small projects. They are very remarkable. They engage people. They create examples, and we saw a few of them that motivate us to move ahead, but you need to have the large-scale projects, and you can only achieve that via partnerships.
Very true. Laura, I want to go back to you. How can we help businesses and local and indigenous populations find common economic purpose in biodiversity conservation and restoration efforts?
Yeah, well, that's hugely important. We have to make sure that the projects we're designing and developing actually work economically for the indigenous people and local communities. And one of the challenges with land-based programs often is when the payback comes, you sometimes have to wait, and also the share that's being split between the private sector or whoever's sponsoring and the local communities. And so we really need to change our mindset from thinking about indigenous people and local communities as stakeholders, to think about them as the rights holders and empowering them as right holders, and also as shareholders. So we create projects that are sustainable for the community as well as for the planet. And I think one of the challenges today is there's often an information disparity between the groups that are organizing projects and the local groups that are going to be responsible for maintaining. And so providing legal support, and this is all, I'm saying this in a context of very good intentions and all of that, but providing support, whether it's legal, whether it's technical. And as we can hear from this panel, just understanding the carbon credits, it's really complicated. So the more we can do to make sure there are not disparities in terms of information or in terms of background, I think the more we can do to create solutions that are going to work for everyone and be successful.
And finally, we have one last question, in the few minutes we have left, which is, in light of recent press and investigations into the credibility of some voluntary carbon market sellers, are you worried that the voluntary market will be negatively impacted and projected growth of previous estimations of upward of $50 billion by 2030 may be far off track? What is being done to maintain the legitimacy in this emerging and growing markets? Anyone, any taker?
Oh, okay. I'll take that. Indeed, there has been a lot of bad press lately about, in particular, reduced emissions from deforestation and forest degradation projects. Partly because some of the claims are overblown, and that we have seen some of that at Calyx Global. We've looked at dozens and dozens of these projects, and we do see some systemic issues. Our approach is to inform buyers directly and to inform the market by sharing what we've learned about these projects. And in reviewing what we've learned and sharing it with the market and sharing it with the standards that are running this market, we are seeing improvements. There are some improvements in the methodologies that are coming out. It's very exciting. It's really promising. I really can't wait to review some of these projects that we've already looked at, because I think they're going to come up. So I think we need to work on the standards, and we also need to educate buyers. I think buyers are going to make the decisions about this market. If you're corporate out there and you're buying, it's up to you to choose integrity. I truly believe that if you choose high-quality carbon credits, you improve the market, you improve the price. It makes it much more interesting to local communities and to project developers, and we all win. We are depending on nature, and we need to have integrity in this market, because if we lose the power of nature, we lose a lot.
That's brilliant. Andrew?
My take on that is, even with the recent bad press or bad discussions, I'm much more optimist than that. I think there are a lot of people qualified, serious, very committed and engaged in these areas. So it's, for me, in a certain way, the mistakes or misinterpretations or misunderstandings are part of an incipient market that is just appearing. But on the middle, long term, I'm pretty constructive about what we are collectively building. And it's easy to see when you plant a forestry from nothing, when you engage communities that were without any alternative before that, or you are protecting rivers, that you are doing something right. So I agree with Dr. Lawrence about the bias will regulate the market, but the market will be there and certainly practicing the right thing.
I agree, and the more we can do to accelerate the maturity of all the elements we need to make this work, the better off we'll be, and I do see progress there.
And on that, thank you so much. Please help me thanks our panelists. Really appreciate all of your input. I don't know about you, but I find this discussion very exciting. And in my non-scientific, non-business mind, I was like, it makes sense, because nature, as I see it, is like us. When we are sick, What do the doctors tell us? Go and rest. And this nature-based solution is about the health of Earth and giving her a break, basically, to re-nurture herself as a way to survive for us and for her. Now, with this, I want to introduce our second panel, which is much more focused on the public sector and the civil societies and communities. And with that, I want to start with Mayor Jaime Pumarejo from the city of Barranquilla in Colombia. Forgive me, I have to work on my Spanish. And then I want to introduce Fernanda Caravello from Global Policy Lead, Climate and Energy Practice, World Wildlife Fund. And last but not least, Jose Gregorio Diaz Marabel, General Coordinator, Indigenous Organizations of the Amazon Basin. Forgive me for not properly saying your name, but Mr. Mayor, I want to start with you. Tell us about Barranquilla, which is in Colombia. I know it's a city of 1 million people, and you have, as I understand it, managed to create a unique relationship with nature, with the nature environments, and coexisting, not only coexisting, but strengthening your natural resources with nature. Can you tell us more about the city and what have you done there?
So yeah, Barranquilla is a northern coastal city in Colombia. It's a Caribbean city. It's bathed by the Magdalena River, which is one of the most important rivers in Colombia. And it is mostly seen itself as an industrial and services city. It's seen itself as a cultural hub. It hosts one of the biggest carnivals in the world, the second biggest after Rio. And in a sense, it didn't see nature as part of its DNA. When we started working 4 years ago as the mayor and before, in the mayor's office, we started seeing that this relationship had to change. But it didn't have to change just as in recognizing it, put it in on a paragraph and doing a couple of things. We needed to change the appropriation of nature by the citizens. So we started with a simple project, and we looked at examples. For example, New York City trees. London has a lot of work on what its arbory system or its urban forest means to it. And for example, it detected that cities that have, or streets that are lined with trees pay 15% more property tax than unlined streets because people want to live in cities lined with trees. So what we did is we demonstrated that it's good business to plant trees that are at least 3 meters high. And then we started showing these people that this reduced temperature and whatnot. But then we started talking about, for example, we have a 1,000-hectare mangrove forest, an estuary, right on the border of the Caribbean Sea and the Magdalena River. People didn't know about it. So we started talking about, let's build an eco-park. So we built a 1,000-hectare eco-park that we're just starting. And people got there and said, well, it smells bad. It's like, yeah, you've been contaminating for 150 years, you know? But now that you've noticed that it's here, let's do something different. So we started doing the cleanup of the water by going upstream and seeing what are we doing. And we started doing projects that'll take 10 years, but we started doing nature-based solutions that take 3 months, and they're already giving results through microalgae. Then we started talking about something that nobody understood, which is dry tropical forests, or bosque seco tropical. And this is a very important ecosystem that's sometimes forgotten. And we started talking about, this is not, you know, just some brush that you can, I don't know, take down to build your nice house. We need to start understanding what this means to our city, to our environment, and to our future. So we started talking about that, and we built a 30-hectare urban forest that we're launching in a few weeks, which has like trekking areas and areas to sleep in, and for camping, it has a mountain bike park. So we started seeing ourselves as an ecotourism location as well, because it is on a place where there's bird migration. So you can see a lot of birds that are endemic to the area, or that stop by for a while. And we're seeing that it makes sense economically. People are living and they're happier in the city that they're living, and they are noticing that they not only have cultural and other amenities, but they also have nature to hold them and make them feel better about themselves.
Fantastic. And contributing to actually climate change is fabulous. Very innovative and beautiful. Thank you. Fernanda, we have heard from key perspectives across the private and public sector on the importance of nature-based solutions as means to help curb emissions. Can you share a little bit more about your work with the World Wildlife Fund and how you position biodiversity and nature as the key piece in mitigating and adapting to climate change?
Okay, so I think that's a very good question to start with. At WWF, we work with this topic in various levels. So I am the head of policy for the climate and energy practice. When we go to the UNFCCC, one of our main asks is an acknowledge of nature-based solutions and their benefits within the climate regime. In the biodiversity regime, we also saw that this discussion is emerging. There is one of the targets of the recently approved Global Biodiversity Framework that talks about conserving 30% of all ecosystems by 2030. So we are creating the enabling conditions. That's one level. The second level is working on the ground. We are present in about 100 countries. So we have an approach that is landscape-based, multi-sectoral, and also community-centered. So we work with projects, creating the projects and the conditions for having, nature-based solutions at a large scale, because when we talk about nature-based solutions, we need to engage with governments at the regional level. We need to co-construct them with local stakeholders, such as the indigenous peoples that we'll be talking about them. I saw in the previous panel that Deborah mentioned that, it is the buyers that will be making the choices about what they buy in the market. So when we are working with markets, this is not the only finance source. We work at the supply and the demand side of it, providing guidance both to the suppliers to create the projects on the ground, the good initiatives, and the buyers to be able to buy from projects that are scientifically sound, that have the right consultations, the right engagement with people. And we also favor clear and measurable targets and future-looking projects, because these projects, they are long-term. They are not short-term projects. So we do. One example of such a project on nature-based solutions that we have is in the Atlantic forest in Brazil. WWF started working there to restore the forest, and now we have about 37 water springs protected. We have 66,000 trees planted, and this project is sponsored by HP, the company, and HP based themselves on this local experience to assume a global commitment of conserving 1 million acres, I think, not 100, sorry. 1 million acres globally, and they are also improving their value chain. So that's an example.
Excellent, excellent. Jose, you helped lead the organization known as Cueca. First of all, I apologize. I want to welcome your translator. Thank you so much, Nicola, for being here, which is indigenous organizations of the Amazon Basin, representing 511 indigenous peoples to support policies and actions to support sovereignty of indigenous peoples and ensure sustainability and equitable development of the Amazon. Can you share recent accomplishments in this area, please?
Bueno, José, usted es uno de los líderes de la organización COICA, una organización indígena que actúa por parte de 511 pueblos indígenas para apoyar políticas y acciones que pueden apoyar la soberanía de pueblos indígenas para asegurar sostenibilidad y un desarrollo equitativo y justo de la Amazonia. ¿Puede usted compartir algunos de sus logros o éxitos recientes en este asunto?
Bien. Primero voy a robar un minuto para agradecer. Agradecer en primer lugar al universo y a los espíritus de la madre selva amazónica. Ese poder espiritual que está presente en este momento, que ustedes le dicen Dios, debe estar presente acá también. Al presidente Clinton, a su esposa Hillary Clinton, a ustedes por estar aquí, y especialmente a nuestra coordinadora general de la COICA, Fanny Cuiro, que está presente, la primera mujer coordinadora general de la COICA, en representación de las mujeres amazónicas, que son grandes conservadoras y restauradoras de la selva.
First of all, I wanted to take a moment to say thanks. Firstly, to the universe and to the mother spirit of the Amazon forest that I know is present with us here now, what some of you here refer to as God. Also to President Clinton, to his wife, Hillary Clinton, and to all of you, and to the coordinator of COICA, Franny COICA, the first female coordinator in that position.
Bien, hemos hecho un llamado al mundo para salvar la selva amazónica. El primer llamado lo hicimos al Papa Francisco en el Sínodo Amazónico. Le pedimos a él que hiciera una iniciativa mundial con los pueblos indígenas para salvar la selva amazónica.
So we have made requests to the world about saving the Amazon forest. One that we did was with Pope Francisco, an initiative to collaborate with indigenous peoples to preserve Amazon forest.
Segundo, en el Congreso Mundial de Áreas Protegidas de la UICN en Marsella, nosotros pedimos al mundo una iniciativa que se llama Amazonía por la Vida, salvar la selva amazónica en un 80% en el 2025, y fue aprobada en el Congreso Mundial de la Naturaleza. Se llama, eso quiere decir que el mundo se comprometió a ayudar a los pueblos indígenas a salvar la selva amazónica. Y por eso también estamos aquí, para que ustedes conozcan esta iniciativa.
And secondly, we also attended the World Congress of Conservation and Nature, Natural Areas in Marseille, and came up with an initiative called Amazonia for Life, which the goal is to protect 80% of the Amazon by 2025. And this initiative was approved. So basically, the world has committed to saving the Amazon forest, and we're also here to continue those efforts.
Y bueno, nosotros todos los días que nos levantamos en nuestras comunidades, todos los días, estamos haciendo que la selva amazónica esté viva. O sea, nosotros cada vez que abrimos los ojos y caminamos nuestro territorio, estamos conservando, preservando, ayudando a que nuestro territorio siga vivo. Es nuestra propia estrategia de sostenibilidad. Y eso queremos que ustedes lo sepan. Eso queremos que ustedes nos acompañen. Por eso estamos aquí, para que sepan que nosotros existimos en la selva, nosotros estamos allí con la selva, conviviendo con la selva. Somos niños, somos abuelos, somos jóvenes, somos mujeres y somos hombres. Aquí estamos nosotros y queremos invitarles a ustedes que nos acompañen.
Every day that we wake up in our communities, we are doing something to keep the Amazon living and alive. When we open our eyes and we wake up in our land, we are preserving it and preserving our territory. That's part of our sustainability strategy. And we want you to know that we are there, that we exist, and we want you to accompany us, that we live there within the forest. We're men, women, we're old, we're young, children, adults. We all are there in the forest.
Thank you so much. You're not only there, you have been telling us about how we need to change our relationship with nature for a long time, and I'm glad the world is finally starting to listen. So thank you for your leadership and patience with all of us, I would say. Mr. Mayor, I want to come back to you. Barranquilla is still considered a medium-sized city, and that size can limit financing investment opportunities. Can you explain the challenges a city your size can face in securing financing, and have you found any approaches to be more successful?
Well, it's a challenge. Barranquilla is a 2.2 million metropolitan area, 1.4 million people live in the city proper. But one thing that we have done, which basically a lot of mayors are talking about this, and we even formed a commission for urban financing of sustainable goals that's within the SDSN network, and we're trying to come up with a better way to finance cities and go through hurdles, in which we were actually meeting yesterday. It's co-chaired by the mayor of Rio, of Paris, and Jeffrey Sachs, and several of us co-chair task forces. And one of the things we've seen is, first of all, you need to build capacity. And this is a framing or a reframing of our thought. Most cities in developing nations, or whatever you want to call them today, are capable of investing and repaying loans. If you are able to give them loans at low interest rate and long-term terms of payment. If we're able to loan to a city like Barranquilla or to a lot of the Amazon basin at the same rate that you lend to New York, believe me, we're going to be able to pay it back, and we're going to be able to pay and do a lot of good with it. So let's reframe the conversation and stop talking about how do we give people money, but how do we loan a lot of these people the money that they need at amicable terms so that they can make quality investments. And secondly is how do we build capacity? And that's what one thing we've done in Barranquilla is we've been able to collect taxes through the building of trust and through bettering our capacities at a much better pace. We started 15 years ago with a budget of $200 million. Right now, comparatively, we're talking about $1.2, $1.4 billion. So we've done a lot of capacity building to strengthen our capacity. And then it's talking to multilateral banks and to public banks and showing them that there is a difference or a different way to make things, and that cities are the direct responsibles or the direct, I would say, if you work with cities, you're going to get stuff done faster. And if we can have a say in how we're going to do things, then you're going to see things getting done quicker. For example, we worked with the French Development Agency, and they gave us $140 million, their first loan in local currency, non-government backed, and it helped us build that eco park we were talking about. And the IDB is going to give us their first policy-based loan to a city in Colombia for the first time ever. So when you talk, you get places.
Thank you. We have a few minutes, so I'm going to manage it really, really hard. Fernanda, I'm going to ask you for a quick answer to my question now, because WWF recommends that carbon credits buyers aim to buy from program projects that demonstrates co-benefits, including those related to enhancing human livelihood, ecosystem services, and biodiversity. From your view, how can buyers ensure that these projects are being transparent in their monitoring and reporting? Very quick so we can have time for Jose.
Okay, so as I mentioned, WWF works both on the demand and the supply side, and we have blueprints on those, and we promote, and we also technically support communities and governments and project developers in implementing this guidance. We also worked with a broader group of NGOs, such as WRI, CI, TNC, IPAN, that's a Brazilian NGO, in developing what we call the Tropical Forest Crediting Initiative Guide. There are some principles there that we support, and we encourage companies to take on board, which are, for example, when you're planning a portfolio of credits. Please align them with global demands. Please buy high-quality credits. Make sure that your purchases will incentivize high-quality credits and also jurisdictional approaches. And just two more things that I need to remember. Due diligence, of course. And the last one is investing in complementary benefits, because if you want to have complementary benefits, and we believe that nature-based solutions should have societal benefits, should enhance ecosystems, and also the quality of life of local populations, you should monitor those.
Thank you, thank you. Last word for you, Jose, and I'm sorry we don't have too much time. But you have heard from an array of leaders across different sectors here today. What is your advice and hope to share to bridge collaboration across sectors to preserve our Earth's biodiversity and forest?
Hemos escuchado de varios líderes diferentes en sectores diferentes aquí hoy. ¿Qué es lo que usted aconseja y su esperanza que tiene para facilitar esta colaboración a través de los sectores diferentes para preservar la biodiversidad de la tierra y de la selva?
Bueno, en primer lugar, yo le pido a ustedes, a todo el mundo, al planeta, que nosotros vivimos en una de las regiones más importantes para el clima del mundo. Es una de las regiones donde hay agua dulce que es vital para el planeta, oxígeno. Entonces, es nuestra casa, pero no la podemos conservar solo. Necesitamos el apoyo de ustedes. Y para apoyarnos es importante, yo he visto que aquí en este evento hay muchas empresas de tecnología, muchas empresas que mueven la economía del mundo. Entonces, nosotros estamos pidiendo que para que la selva no se destruya, porque la selva está conectada con los mares, está conectado con el hielo. Y para que podamos seguir viviendo todos, necesitamos que haya una transición económica y energética. Ahí dicen que es bioeconomía, pero no puede haber una bioeconomía o una transición energética.
So I ask you all, everyone in the world, that we live in one of the most important regions of the world in terms of the environment. Where we are, there's a lot of fresh water and things that are vital for the air and the oxygen of the world. However, we cannot save it alone. We need your support. And here in this event, I see there's many people from technology, industry, and economies throughout the world that have a lot of impact. And we ask you about making a transition in the economy and in the energy, a transition in those economies.
Estamos pidiendo que haya una transición económica en el sentido de que la economía que yo veo acá tiene que trabajar con nuestra forma de conservar la selva. Que la economía no sea tumbar los árboles, que la economía no sea contaminar el agua, que la economía sea con nuestros conocimientos también de cómo hemos conservado nosotros. Ayúdenos a conservar la selva y a salvar la vida. Eso estamos pidiendo. Con ustedes. Tenemos que acercarnos, tenemos que estar juntos.
And this transition of economy, we want it to be about working to conserve the forest, not having an economy where the business is about cutting trees, the business is about polluting water, but doing things that would help us, that would help conserve the forests. And that's what we're asking for everyone's collaboration, to be able to preserve these forests through a transition in the business.
Thank you so much. It really reminds me that we are all part of the one. when one is harmed, we are all harmed, and when one is helped, we are all helped, and that is not only including nature. It includes, not includes humans, but also includes nature and all of the beings in it. And so helping each other, whether it is in the Amazon or whether it is a city in Colombia, it is all part of the solution that is facing all of humanity. And with that, thank you so much. I find this most inspiring for all of your work. Good luck, and thank you so much for joining us today. And we can all be part of the solutions, not only in different cities, in our own homes, in our own cities, in our own universities, in our own gardens. So thank you so much, and I look forward to continue checking your progress. Thank you.
Thank you for attending this session. We kindly ask that you make your way out of the room and continue your conversations in the hallway so we can reset this room for the next session. Thank you.